Let's roll. This is Countercharge, your podcast for ranks, flanks, and kings of war. Join your hosts as they delve into the world of Panithor and bring you worldwide coverage of all things Kings of War.
Welcome to Countercharge, and I am, as Rob has proclaimed, the epic guru, Drek.
And I'm Rob Panoff, and as you just heard, we had Drek. Before you were the guru, you were just the superstar Pathfinder at various events, including Adepticon, Michigan GT, those kind of things.
That was my first major Pathfinder event, was last year at Adepticon.
Exactly.
I just started pathfinding a short while before that.
Well, let's jump in and let's learn a little bit about you. So, give us a sense of who you are and where you're from.
Well, I live in Midwest Ohio. I have been in touch with the gaming hobby.
Midwest Ohio, though, is that like Columbus?
About an hour north of Columbus.
Oh, we've had this conversation. We've done this dance already.
I am from Upper Sandusky.
But actually, Upper Sandusky is actually
an hour south of Sandusky. There you go.
Yeah, it makes no sense. But I guess it's upriver.
Sandusky River. Yeah.
Got it. So everybody,
my wife's from this town. I just moved here.
What would people know Sandusky for?
Well, Sandusky would be known for like Cedar Point. Upper Sandusky would be known for nothing.
Yeah.
Upper Sandusky is about 6,000 people. It's a lot of farms, and it's kind of in the middle of Findlay and Marion.
Findlay, is that the flag place?
Yeah. Flag City, USA.
Flag City, USA. I have driven there many a time going to different wargaming events.
You've shot right past Upper Sandusky, and you probably didn't even notice.
I didn't even notice it. That's disappointing. Well, you have an epic wargaming origin story. You've played a lot of different games, and I want to touch on some of that. But give us that sense. And, let's not divulge your age. Because even if you do, you're not as old as me. So that's good.
I encountered 40K when it was brand new.
Rogue Trader, like
just after Rogue Trader, like the first Warhammer 40,000,
early 90s,
second edition. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
I started playing 40K for a period, 4th edition, and then I kind of fell out of the hobby for a while until I got really hardcore into Drop Zone Commander. Became friends with the U.S. rep for that, became a Hawk Talon, started working events, got really hard in the drop fleet as well. That was my game a solid 5 or 6 years until they ran some problems and had to go through the TT Combat buyout. And then game really changed after that. I kind of went wandering. So I played Infinity, Bolt Action, Gates of Antares, Warlords of Aeron. I bounced around Legion, Armada. So ended up, I picked up a copy of Firefight and couldn't get anyone to play it with me. Couldn't get any of my community together to want to try it out. And it kind of just went back on a shelf. And then Mantic announced Epic, and all of my old Drop Zone friends were just like, well, that's right up our alley. And we all backed, some of us maybe a little too heavily, but that Adepticon, the Adepticon where we first met, several of us bought in heavy. I picked up an Asterian force and a GCPS force there, and a couple of the other guys got in. 3 other guys got in there, then 2 other guys picked it up shortly after that Adepticon. And that's kind of where I started to kind of fall in love with Mantic a bit. When I came back from that, I had a FLGS that opened up in my area, and I went up there to do a little RPG, and there were no takers, and I had brought English is hard. I had brought some 1-page rules with me, and I threw that on a table to play with the one friend that had come with me.
What were you guys playing? Like Grimdark or what?
Yeah, Grimdark.
Grimdark Future.
Grimdark Future. It wasn't the full war game. It was their Firefight. I think it's called Grimdark Firefight. It's their equivalent of Kill Team.
Got it. Kill. Let's be honest though. Dead Zone is much better than Kill Team.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Literally, I've only played Kill Team a couple times. I can't
win a game of Dead Zone, but yeah, it's a heck of a lot better game.
Well, that's a you problem, right? or more importantly, that's a friend's problem. Your friends are too good.
Let's say it's a dice problem. I'm going to blame dice because that's what real strategists do.
Well, you just roll 8s in that game, right? That's all you got to do.
That's all you got to do to win. and I'm bad at that.
Yeah.
I really excel at 1s and 2s, though.
Let's unpack that, though. Obviously, Drop Zone Commander and then the subsequent Fleet Commander, Drop Zone, are kind of like planetary invasion forces dropping troops and tanks and stuff down.
Really similar to Epic, yeah. It's 10 millimeter sci-fi warfare. The cool thing about Drop Zone was that it was very hard science fiction. So Dave Lewis, the guy that designed all the models, the Bear APC, it says it can hold 10 Marines. You could fit 10 Marines into that APC. Everything was true scale. Just really a really gorgeous game. Like when you had a full 1,500 plus points out on the table and someone walked by, there wasn't anything on the market at that time that looked like it. It was just a really eye-catching game.
Well,
and then
also the fact that you have one guy that did everything. Oh my God. I don't know if he sculpted. Did he sculpt too?
He sculpted. He even sculpted the original metal infantry. He hated doing it, but he did it because he needed troops, which is why he didn't have a ton of troop options initially with the game. Yeah, I mean that's changed. Like now that they're with TT Combat, they have digital sculptors and they've moved on to resin instead of metal. And some of the sculpts are pretty cool. Some of the sculpts are iffy, but that's a different story.
Dude, what faction did you play? You don't look like. Is it UMNC? What was the
UCM, the United Colonies of Mankind? That's the generic human faction, if you will.
You didn't play those guys though.
You
don't look like.
What faction did I play in Drop Zone?
I'm gonna guess is it the advanced humans? What was that called? The
Post-Human Republic was my faction of choice.
You could just tell the bald head. I was like, yeah, this is probably post-human.
Listen, I have a type, okay?
Yeah.
So, in 40K, I played Space Marines. In Drop Zone, I played PHR. In Warpath, I play Enforcers. So
elite humans, right?
Genetically augmented humans in power armor. Hey, I'm there.
It's funny. I never actually played that game, but when they came out with the plastic 2-player starter set, which I think was still before the conversion to TT Combat, it was still Hawk War Games, right? And it had UMC and what was the other? The Scourge?
UCM and Scourge.
Yeah. So the models were fantastic and I painted some up and it was great. But again, it was one of those things where it's a different scale. You have to find somebody to, like, essentially if I wanted to play, I had to provide both armies, right?
That was always the hardest because, it wasn't heavily stocked anywhere. It's not something that a lot of people were playing. But like I said, when you put it on the table, when you're sitting there and you've got a city in front of you and you're pushing around, tank platoons and, 30, 40 infantry, season objectives inside of structures, toppling buildings. I mean, there's a lot of just really great moments to that game. I haven't played Drop Zone probably the last time I played it was 3 years ago. We put it on the table again to give it a try with the current rules and just
wasn't for you. Yeah.
Wasn't crazy about it anymore, but I mean, I can't bring myself to part with the models.
Anybody that brings resin buildings to the table, like he had some like deluxe resin. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Now I didn't get into it enough to make that purchase, but man, it was really close for a while there.
I never bought any of that stuff either, just because I couldn't. It wasn't like I couldn't afford it, but it was transporting it.
Yeah.
I was running tournaments. Usually, I typically ran Origins and assisted Don at MGT, but Don used to be the U.S. rep for TT Hawk. He ran all the cons, and the group of us now, who most of us on Pinned and Broken, would work the shows with him. But I would run all the Origins events, Zone and Fleet. I tried to do some combined stuff for a while, but when I was trying to bring an entire tournament's worth of stuff, and you're trying to set up at least 8 tables, pack in all resin buildings when you need 15, 20 buildings per. That flat pack cardboard was great.
Yeah, even though it is small scale, you still need a lot of, because as I remember, there's a lot of terrain on the table for that.
Yeah, and I'm trying to find that balance for Epic right now as I work through it. I threw some photos up in the Fanatics group of a couple of tables I may or may not be working on for an event that may or may not be coming up.
Yeah. Well, and you were kind of like essentially the RC for Drop Zone, correct? Like you were like a play tester that was involved in the development of the game for a long time.
Yeah, myself and all the guys who are on Pinned and Broken with me, we were working with Don a lot, and Don had started taking up some of the rules writing with and for Dave, and we were working on the second edition of the game. So we were full on writing the second edition rule set, play testing it, balancing it. We were running tournaments with it to actually get it beat up and played before it went to print. And of course, the whole transition happened there, and unbeknownst to us, TC Combat decided to go a different direction, and they were kind enough to include us in the conversation. But they're like, "Here's the draft that we're getting ready to send to the printer in 3 weeks. What do you guys think?" And we had many thoughts, but I mean, they were ready to go to print. There wasn't any time to fix it.
If they wanted you to really give them feedback, they would have given it to you early.
Right. And there's some great things that they did for the game with that new edition. They switched the way armor worked so that numbers always went up. You weren't doing any THACO style math to figure out your 2 hits and damage. There were no charts for that. It was just straight up, if the armor is X, then you roll this plus energy, and if you pass armor, then you damage, right? It was a lot cleaner. But for everything there's like, oh, that's a good cleanup and a fix. There was like, well, you gave infantry the ability to travel 12 inches in a dropship, 6 inches in an APC, and then 6 inches on foot. So suddenly infantry are faster than tanks. And
I mean, you mentioned you got into, at least at one point, like 4th edition 40K. Are you a sci-fi person at heart? Like, this is my bread and butter?
Sci-fi is my love. I'm trying to get into Kingsman. I know it's blasphemy to say that here. I have 2 orc mega armies, 2 Basilean mega armies, Forces of the Abyss, and an elf army, and they all look great in the boxes over there.
Yeah. Well, they were. Did you get them at Adepticon by chance? Or some of them?
I got the elves and the orcs and the Forces of the Abyss at Adepticon at Mantic Night, and then at MGT this year, Rick had everything half off for 4th edition because of the reboxing and the new sculpts, and that's where I picked up the 2 Basileans.
Well, on that end, obviously 4th edition is right around the corner. I'm sure you've probably heard a thing or two, right? Like, what are you feeling like as someone that is not part of the community directly, not, actively playing Kings of War? Kind of, how has been the marketing pitch to you? Because, I mean, this has been the discussion we've been having, is that we're at a seminal point where they have changed the game enough to make it more accessible to new players, to maybe make it more interesting to players that aren't already playing, just to try to, make it more accessible to get more players that are not part of the faithful into the game. And I'd be curious, what are your thoughts on what, and maybe you haven't heard anything because you haven't been listening, but what are your thoughts on 4th edition?
Well, the thing that caught my eye was they dropped a new army, and I'm not going to try to butcher that name.
The Zerkali.
I really liked the sculpts, and my understanding is that there are multiple dog breeds on the sprue.
I don't know about the sprue, but I know for sure there are 3D printed options to change heads on all the models so you can make them, I guess, pugs or huskies.
And yeah, I asked Kyle, can I do a pug army? He didn't answer me.
He didn't answer you?
No. I said it kind of tongue in cheek. I used to have a German Shepherd. I absolutely adored her. She passed away last year.
Oh, terrible.
But yeah, I saw a couple of the Shepherd heads on those, and I thought, I could almost do an army. The thing that's hard for Kings for me, and I thought Champions would make it better, and I still haven't gotten through my Champion starter box. I did Alanis and my Footmen and my Archers, and I stalled on the Cavalry. It's a hobby chore. Like,
it is.
When I see those fully painted armies, and that was, Adepticon, that was a thing that I was like, I'm going to pick up a box, because I saw some of those finished armies and just how gorgeous an army looks based up. I mean, it's impressive. I just don't have the wherewithal. I've got 2 regiments of orcs and a Crudger that I painted, and I'm just like, that was enough.
That's a problem with 28 millimeter ranks and flank gaming in general, right? Or even a historical war game, right? There's usually so many models required to get an army on the table that it feels almost like an impossible task. Like, oh, I need 240 models. It's like, 240 models? Like, even if you're not trying to paint it to a decent standard, if you're just trying to get slap paint on it, even that. You mentioned the assembly, right? Mantic does a great job of making models simple to go together. But every once in a while, like you mentioned the Basilean Cavalry that is in the Champions box, right?
Yeah.
Like those were not easy models to build. They had like a lot of pieces, and you've got to have armor plates, and so.
In their defense, though, it's only what, 5 to a troop.
Correct. It is only 5 troop. Really, you should probably put 4 because it was really, 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 really hard for me to put 5 on a troop base.
I've got 5 of them assembled and started, and yeah, I saw someone on one of the posts had done 4 on the base and then turned 1 into a hero. I'm like, that person's thinking.
Absolutely.
Because like with my champions, I did the there were some resin print options from Vanguard, and there was the one like sergeant who's got the spear that he's charging out, and I put one of those in the center of my footmen and just dropped 2 footmen out of the unit just to kind of spice it up a smidge. But that doesn't matter now in 4th, does it? You don't have to. There's no leader model.
Well, there's no leader model on every facing. There's mid center point of each facing.
It's just the center point of the base now.
It's essentially like a leader point on every side now because it matters. It's not just the leader point, and they got rid of things like using the leader point for line of sight purposes or any kind of measurement.
So is it just from anywhere on the base for line of sight?
Well, yeah, on that facing, right? So line of sight's
That's a lot easier though.
From the facing and stuff, and you can take measurements for shooting and for charging from that. So in terms of the marketing blitz, I mean, kind of what have you caught? What's I mean, obviously you mentioned the Zerkali, but has there been other things about the rules themselves that have like, oh, maybe this game will be a little easier for me to play and learn?
Nothing that's come across my radar. I knew it was coming, but at the same time, I mean, you kind of hit on it. Like sci-fi is my bread and butter. That's where I get all excited. Like for me, like I'm happy to see Kings getting a new edition, and I'm happy for there to be buzz because if Kings is doing well, Mantic's doing well, and if Mantic's doing well, I'll get more Firefight, Dead Zone, Epic. So.
Well, really, it all begins and ends with Halo.
Anymore.
If Halo's doing well, Daddy's getting the big piece of chicken for it.
I ran a Halo tournament this past weekend, and I had a ringer in it. And I brought the new ODST, and that expansion might be the box that makes me a Halo player.
Well, we've had this discussion at Adepticon, Dead Zone versus Halo, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because they're both, I mean, Halo is based on the mechanics from Dead Zone with some tweaks like respawning and that kind of thing. So you were pretty Dead Zone. You were pretty pro Dead Zone. So is it starting to sway a little bit? Is there a chink in the armor?
I would still rather play Dead Zone than Flashpoint personally, but busting out a squad of 7 ODST on a Halo table was quite the treat. It allowed me to play Halo more like I play Dead Zone, which felt good to me. And I really had a good time. I felt bad. It was my own tournament. I ended up technically coming in 2nd place.
You're a terrible human being.
I'm a terrible ringer. It wasn't intentional, and fortunately, I mean, the guys that were all playing were all local, so it was a very laid back and good time. And I didn't take 2nd place; like all the prizes went to the guys there. But it wasn't even me. We used the app for the tournament, and one of the other guys had to drop out due to a family emergency, and I just played under his name. So technically, he took 2nd place. So
that's fantastic.
So, there you go, Zach. You're welcome.
Well, you mentioned you're the sci-fi guy. So what games are you actively playing today?
Nothing. I have 4 kids and a full-time job at the moment. So
you're vicariously playing through battle reports and talking to people on podcasts.
I'm playing Firefight when I get the chance. I played Firefight at Adepticon and MGT. I begged Blake to let me play Firefight at the next Adepticon. I played Epic at not Epic. Well, I did play Epic at MGT. We set up and played some Epic there just to get it on the table. But played Dead Zone at MGT. I lost every round in Dead Zone. A couple of them badly. I drew my first round in Firefight against Nick, and I'm not going to remember his last name.
Yeah, it's Nick S. Let's just call him that. He's a Lansing player.
And then I played
Shilaluk or something. I don't even know. It's some crazy name. I don't even try to pronounce his last name. It's like, all right, that's like me. I go Rob P. I'm like, fine. That's what you call me. That Rob. It's fine.
I played Kyle in round 2. Took on his Asterians, and I'll tell you what, he felt bad because he rushed his Kalishi up on me. I had a squad of enforcers on top of a building, and he rushes his Kyra transport up, and I know it's full of Kalishi, and they hop out, and I'm like, well, I can't let that happen, and I unload on his Kalishi, and I think I threw 9 or 10 dice, and I hit with 8 of them, and I go to roll damage, and nothing above a 2.
Because Kalishi don't have any armor, right? Or
Nope.
Very little armor, right?
Nope. I should have massacred them in the street, and I didn't scratch a 1. And I just looked at him. I was like, "That's the game, man." Because you're gonna round that corner and nothing's surviving. And sure enough, he's like, and he looks at me, he's like, I'm sorry. I was like, dude, it's what you need to do.
Absolutely. Did you also play Star Saga back in the day? You know, the
I didn't, but I went and found a copy of Star Saga. I picked up a copy of Star Saga from Noble Knight, the retail version, and then I wanted to get the character builder expansion for it, and I went on eBay and I found an entire Kickstarter sealed box of Star Saga on eBay, and I snatched that up like it was nobody's business.
right.
So I'm sitting on Star Saga, just haven't played it.
Yeah. What about Dreadball? That's another sci-fi game.
I'm aware of its existence.
Yeah.
As part of the Warpath universe, but it's not a game that's tripped my interest. I know All Stars is coming out, and I'll cast a glance at it when it gets released, but it's not on top of my list.
It's funny because that's kind of the first entry into sci-fi that Mantic did, right? Because that was like the first game, right? Because they had these like one-off box games, something Pandora, where they introduced the vermin for the first time, but they were more like one shots. But then they came out with, they kickstarted Dreadball, and it was like, oh my gosh, Forge Fathers.
It did really well, didn't it?
It did, yeah. So I'm excited to see what happens. I know Brian Novak from Michigan GT and Dead's on the podcast. By the way, it's interesting that the Kings of War podcast got you on first before Brian.
You know what? He was talking smack about me on his podcast the other day.
Okay. So, I knew there had to be something. There's
he
beef
had the
there.
audacity
There's
to tell
beef.
people that I was a sweet person, and I just I questioned his judgment and character.
Well, you did mention that you're a Pathfinder. How did you come to become a Pathfinder?
Well, so what ended up happening was when that FLGS opened, I had that first day up there that I was running one-page rule stuff, and I was just kind of BSing with all the guys there, and I had already pre-ordered Halo. My oldest is a big Halo fan, and I thought if there's a game I might be able to get on the table with him, I'll pick up the Spartan edition just to paint some Spartans and see if he wants to play. Of course he doesn't, because he's 17 and there's more interesting things than plastic soldiers with dad. But I had mentioned that the Halo game was coming out, and I had a half dozen guys ears perk up and heads turn, and they were all just like, I'd play that. And I'm like, all right. And I was talking to the shop owner, and he seemed like a good dude. And I was like, you know what? If I can help you get a kind of a wargaming base going here, I'm happy to give it a try. So looked into the Pathfinder program, and I thought, well, might as well try it. And I applied and reached out to Rick, interviewed with him, talked to him, and hit it off, I think, well enough. And just been trying to push Mantic wares through the store since.
Well, and you've been helping at different events too, right? Like Adepticon and stuff?
I did Adepticon last year, and I did Origins this year. And I was at MGT. I wasn't working MGT. I volunteered. I was like, if you need me, I'll be there.
Yeah.
And Rick's like, we won't need you, but go play.
That's awesome.
So.
Interesting. So, just give us a sense. Obviously, you've played lots of different games with lots of different companies over the years. Mm-hmm. I'll ask it like this. How is Mantic different?
No, I think they are. What really draws me to Mantic is the personality, and that is to say that I love the fact that they have an active rules committee of regular players who are playing the game and listening to the community and balancing rules around that. I think that's great. I think that's healthy for the game. I like the fact that the owner of the company pops over to Michigan.
That was so insane. I'm not bringing my podcast gear, and I get a thing. Hey, you need to bring your stuff because Ronnie's going to be there. I'm like, why is Ronnie coming? I mean, Michigan is a fine event, but it's not very big, right? And I was like, okay, all right, I'm going to be there, so I might as well pack the microphones.
Yeah, and it was just really nice to get there, just to sit there and BS with Ronnie about games and about nothing. So, just humanizing him a little bit, but yeah, there's a really good relation, I feel, from the company with the player base. And then also, very rarely have I seen anybody who is, that guy at a tournament table with a Mantic game. That guy who is the rule gotcha guy or the rule lawyer guy or the anything to win kind of player. It's just a very laid back community, and And I think that comes from the fact that the games are fun and everybody there is it's just a good vibe. And that goes a long way for me.
Yeah, and the fact that we don't have some of those, I'm air quoting here, those kind of players.
Yeah.
I think number one, on the surface, Mantic is pushed for a game that doesn't have those kind of gotcha moments in most cases. I mean, all right, Surge in Kings of War, yeah, that can be a gotcha moment the first time you play it, but it doesn't happen again and again. Like you learn the different rules and that's it. It's not like in list construction, you have some weird obscure rule.
There's no net list to win.
List building is still important. And I think list building in Kings of War, maybe it's 30%, and then player skill 70%. And in other games, it might be flipped where it's maybe more 70%. I mean, there are certainly people that try to take, Adam Ballard won Masters with this list, I will take that list. And they try. But what's interesting is that it's harder because I don't know, this is a great conversation to have with you, because in a science fiction game where maybe it's shoot, assault, right? It's like target selection is important, and maybe target selection is a little bit easier to teach somebody. Whereas if it's move, adjust, assault, right? Like in the case of Kings of War,
yeah,
that is a harder mechanic to get your head around. So maybe talk a little about that, the differences in a science fiction game. And I'm generalizing here. I'm sure there's science fiction games that are all close combat.
You're leading into this question with the assumption that I'm any good at these games.
Fair point. Yeah.
I find, and this is just coming from like an enforcer player, you're running smaller squads, so I find that stuff like pinning is extremely important, and being able to spread fire and slow the army that you're facing down. I mean, I do think target selection is important. The gotcha rule, if you will, I found at MGT was they changed heights, how height works in the rules committee.
And that's your firefight?
Yeah. So if you're 4 levels above your target, there's no such thing as cover, even though Pythagoras might turn over in his grave if you said there wasn't cover for that target. And I mentioned that to Ronnie, and he's like, "We'll look at it." All right. There's definitely, I mean, when you're playing a heavy assault army, yeah, it's weathering that storm of fire. And I don't know, is archery bad in Kings of War? Is ranged not effective?
In Edition 3.5, not particularly. There's a couple builds that have made the rounds that have been a little bit egregious, and I think we're seeing a response to that in 4th edition, in which they are significantly toning back shooting. Like the really good shooting units are becoming more expensive. Those units may not be core units that unlock other units. Also, big changes to shooting is that you can't route units in shooting anymore unless they're devastated. So if they have a nerve of 17, unless you have 17 or more damage on them, they fail the nerve test. They're wavered, not routed. So they have definitely toned it back. I think I said the gotcha game, but it's really about, they're trying to avoid, I think, negative play experience. So they don't want the player to show up and go, "Damn, I didn't even get to move my stuff, and you took off 5 units."
Kings is I go, you go, right? You move
100%. And and some crazy people have said, "Oh, it needs to be alternate." You cannot do alternating activations. If you want to play alternating activations, play Firefight. Like, it's designed with that in mind.
Yeah, it's a significant difference is when in Firefight you're working with those alternating activations. So like Assault, while Assault may not be the most effective way, it also forces a unit to activate. So if your concern is, I need this unit to not do anything this round, you might throw a chaff unit at it, knowing it's going to get wiped out, but you're going to force that unit's activation in the Assault, and that's going to allow you to move your other stuff around or fire on it.
You are so smart, though. You just gave me an idea. I mean, maybe the reason why the sci-fi games, which are normally mostly alternating activations, you could argue that those games are easier to respond quickly because they activate a unit, you activate a unit. Whereas in Kings of War, I move my whole army, and then you move your whole army, and you don't get to go again until the next turn. So what I'm saying, the pace of play is a little bit less granular.
And that's one of the things I enjoy with Firefight, with alternating activations in general, is it's keeping you actively engaged with your opponent. You're talking back and forth as you're moving models, explaining your intent, calling out shots. So it is very responsive, and you're trying to go in there with a plan, but your opponent's also trying to disrupt that plan.
I think 4th edition is going to be a seminal moment for the community. I'm a positive person, so I'm optimistic that we'll bring in some players we haven't that maybe haven't looked at it before to at least kick the tires, right, and see if it's for them.
You guys need to do less of these big 2-day tournaments so I can squeeze it into my schedule. That's what I need.
For sure. I think there is the argument that we need more 1 day, like 3 smaller point games, just to people to play. Because again, I was talking about the barrier entry being the armies, but if all of the tournaments, I'm generalizing again, it's not all the tournaments like that, but
right.
If many of the tournaments are 2-day or even part of a bigger convention like take Adepticon. Well, if you want to play Kings of War at Adepticon, the main tournament is 2 days. So you're losing Saturday and Sunday of that event. And so that means you probably can't play Dead Zone.
Right. Well, and like for someone like me, Sunday
Halo.
is travel day.
Yeah.
So,
you're leaving, you're going home on Sunday.
Yeah. We check out at 11. We might take a run through the vendor hall and we're on the road by noon because 8-hour drive.
Promise those listening, we will in fact get to Epic Warpath in a little bit, but I got one more topic that I have a Grand Master to tell us about. I have a Grand Master of 3D printing here. So let's talk about your background with 3D printing. What made you take the leap into, I think I'm going to own a 3D printer?
One of my friends, Jordan, who's Gordo on the countercharge, or not on countercharge, on Pin and Broken, he bought his first 3D printer years ago, early in our Drop Zone days. And he bought it as a pure hobbyist intention. He wanted to build it and fiddle with it and learn how to use it. And then kind of revealed to all of us that, look, I can print terrain and scatter and objects, and we're all just kind of like, oh, that's really cool. And then as time kind of progressed on, the price on those machines started to come way down. Eventually, I was able to get an Ender 3 brand new in box for like $200. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to pull the trigger on it because I want to build an Atlantic wall for bolt action. Which I did. That was an experience.
But did you paint it and get it on the table?
Yes. In fact,
fantastic.
We had a D-Day event. There was 5 of us that were able to get together on the anniversary of D-Day, and our friend Patrick, we call him the Swedish Giant because he's a giant Swedish man, but played the Germans and defended the Atlantic Wall against Jordan and Josh as they landed troops in waves. And then on a table across from it, we were using the bolt action firefight rules, and my friend George and I were doing the assault on the 105s at Brecor Manor to stop the artillery bombardment on the beach. So we had 2 separate games going that were linked, and it was a really cool time.
So you started with like an Ender 2, like printing PLA or something.
Yep.
I'm assuming.
Yep.
But give me a sense of, that's how it starts, but the addiction grows. And so what is the drug of choice today? I
have 2 printers currently. I'm an Anycubic guy. I've had really good experience with their product. So I'm running an Anycubic Cobra 3 for my FDM printing, and I have currently a Mono X2 for my resin printing.
Mono X2, that means it's really big or really small?
Really big. It's like a little over a 10-inch build plate. Well, I had a Mono 4KX first, which was the predecessor to it, and I only had like a 6-inch build plate. Yeah. It was a great printer, but you couldn't cram a lot on it. So I was like, I want a bigger build plate. So the X2 is technically a slightly lower resolution printer than my old one, but you're talking like the width of a human hair when you're looking at these layer lines. So it wasn't that discernible. Although I'm on the cusp now of thinking I need to upgrade again, but I haven't pulled the trigger on that.
You have an interesting thing that you just brought up though about the size. Everybody always says we want to do really big, but with a resin printer, maybe it makes sense to have a small one to do a small print run, because with resin you got to fill the tank and all that, right? And if you have a smaller bed, then like you potentially have to waste. I'm air quoting there, waste or fill it with less resin.
The stuff sits in there. There are people who empty their vat after every print. I've let resin sit in that vat for 2 months and gone back and stirred it up and used it, and it's fine. The neat thing about resin is if you fill your build plate or if you only put one model on the build plate, the amount of time it takes to print it is the same regardless. It's based off of the number of layers you're printing. So I wanted the bigger plate because I wanted to be able to print squads at a time.
That makes sense, and I never made that connection that with a resin printer, you're literally printing a whole layer across the whole plate.
Mm-hmm.
Boom, 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 like all at once. Whereas the FDM printer is obviously moving a nozzle around. Right. And so the more you fill it, the longer it takes. So do you have plans to upgrade your FDM printer, or you're still good?
I'm still good with the Cobra. I upgraded that about a year ago, and it's been a workhorse. I think I've got about 800 hours of print on it. So
nice.
And right now it is working on Kirill, one of my friends, was furloughed during the government shutdown and needed something to do. And I said, what would be really cool is if you designed a prop Genling 32 laser pistol from Firefight so that I could take it with me to Adepticon and, threaten players as a TO during events.
That is amazing. And are you printing it in black, or are you going to paint it?
I am currently printing it back, so people won't be able to see it.
Well, you have to send me a picture of it so I can include it in the show notes. Oh,
this is the front half of it. It's still got a cover plate that has to go on it. He's an engineer by trade, so he was excited for the challenge of refreshing those CAD skills. And it's probably going to take me another 2 or 3 plates to get all the parts. It'll completely come apart. He's got internal components. There's a heat sink in there and a big capacitor and the laser coil. And
oh my gosh!
So I'm gonna have to paint it up, and maybe I'll try to send one home with Ronnie at Adepticon. But
I'm sure he would love to have a sci-fi gun in his luggage.
Right. It's clearly plastic. I'm gonna paint it as realistic as I can.
You made it disassemble, so it comes apart. It's a toy, right? Come on.
Yeah, no, he's super proud of it, and he should be. It's really awesome, and I'm excited to get it printed and put together and see how it all pans out. But I told him, I said, well, next I need an enforcer helmet. So
what's for next year? What events you're doing? Adepticon? Are you doing Origins again? What's on your docket?
I'm definitely doing Adepticon. If my wife won't divorce me, I'll try to help out at Origins if they need it. I basically have offered to sell my soul to Rick for Epic events. So after MGT, I asked him, I messaged him, like, is there Epic at Adepticon? And he's like, yes, there'll be Epic at Adepticon. And I was like, well, if you need someone to run the events for Epic, I would do it. And he's like, okay. And I kind of thought about it for a minute. I messaged him back. I'm like, actually, I want to do it. Like I'm asking. I said, unless you absolutely have someone that you want to run it, I want to do Epic. I want to push Epic. And he's like, okay, it's yours. And then he sicked Blake on me, and my world was forever changed. And I know Blake.
Blake Schroed?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you were just talking about how you were a terrible ringer by beating people up and Blake does it all the time, right? He brings the worst list. So you must have been bitten by Blake.
Maybe. Well, do we want to talk about what's going on at Adepticon this year?
I think we should. You're going to be rocking and rolling with some Adepticon or Epic Warpath.
I have 2 days of events that I'm running at Adepticon. And this is the schedule as I understand it now. So any and all of this could probably be subject to change, but as far as I understand, this stuff is booked. We are doing tournament Thursday, and we're doing 1,500 point 4x4 tables.
And that's instead of a 6x4, or what do we normally?
It's instead. So at 1,500, they say plays best on a 4x4, and I have an abundance of materials available to supply for a tournament at that size. So given the window, I mean, if the turnout is good and we find that 2,000 or 2,500 is where the meta really ends up, which I think the meta will probably end up in the 2,000s for the game. But being as it's new, people are still getting armies together, and we're still getting a log of terrain and tables together for the game. There was talk of doing it at 1,000. I was like, 1,000, we don't want to do 1,000. No one's going to bring a super heavy at 1,000. 1,500, you can get a super heavy in there and build a decent army around it and let you actually experience the game. So that's the goal for that. The other event on Friday Blake calls me and he's like, "Are you familiar?"
This is not going to end well.
He's like, "Are you familiar with the Kings of War big game?"
Yes, I knew that's where you're going. As soon as he said that, I'm like, he wants you to do like a 75,000 point game of Epic Warpath.
I said, I don't know. I said I saw a big game at Adepticon last year. He's like, yeah. He's like, it's a 24-foot table and 6 players and 2,000 points aside. I said, yeah. He's like, I want you to do that for Epic. And I said, no.
That is insane, though, right? Because first of all, you could pack a lot more units on that size of a table.
And that's what I said. I said, dude, I can't do it. I physically can't do it. I said, but I could do 12 feet. So the plan is right now it's a 12-foot and it's 3 4x4s together. And when we were kind of talking about it, I said, well, I said the lore for Warpath doesn't get enough love. So I want to do something kind of lore themed. So I decided that I was going to try to have the players at the table recreate the containment of Adriana. Are you familiar?
I am not. I am completely dumb when it comes to the Warpath.
Do you know what the containment protocols are?
Yeah, from Dead Zone.
Yeah.
I know that much.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's assume people listening to a Kings of War podcast don't. So
okay.
Why don't you share? It's the same thing that happens to Tyler Schultz when he comes on. He has to recite, everything.
So why aren't you getting the guys from the Mantic podcast on here? This is their job.
On. Well, it literally was just on a minute ago, but we didn't talk about lore. They wanted to talk about Kings of War, so there you go.
Well, they've talked about all the Warpath stuff. So, the containment protocols in the Warpath universe, whenever there's a planet that has a plague outbreak or a vermin infestation that gets out of control, in order to cut it off so it doesn't spread to other systems, they'll initiate what's called a containment protocol, and that basically shuts off the nav buoy to the system so that ships can't find it, and literally strands everything in that system there. They can't jump in, they can't jump out, and then the enforcers will come in. And if they're capable of scrubbing the infestation from the world, they will. And then the buoy will get turned back on and everything will go back to, life as it was. And if they're not, then that world becomes a dead zone. So in the lore, Planet Adriana was one of the first worlds that got hit by a serious plague infestation. They escaped Death Ark, which is a strip of space with a series of worlds that the Asterians were babysitting. The Asterians are space elves for King's players. And when humanity discovered them, the Asterians basically walked over or flew over to them and was like, listen, you can't go there. And according to the lore, they met with the Council of Seven, which is the ruling body of the Galactic Co-Prosperity Sphere, which is the human government of the Warpath universe. They met with them, and whatever they told them was convincing enough that the council didn't make a fuss, and in fact engaged what was called the Long Patrol, which is an enforcer strike force that patrols the opposite side of the Death Ark from the Asterians. So the system's actually flanked by the Asterians and the enforcers to ensure that nothing gets on or off this world. For whatever reason, something was able to slip off the world, and a plague infestation got to this world called Adriana. And broke out and ran rampant, and an enforcer wyvern was able to respond, and the enforcers went down and purged the planet. And that was where the council basically was like, we need a containment protocol. We need a set series of events that trigger so that we can ensure that this stuff doesn't spread. So for the big game, I'm running 3 instances of it on Friday. They're 3-hour blocks. It's going to be 3 players on each side, and it's about like 1,200 points. Right now, it's about 1,200 points of plague and 1,200 points of enforcers, and they're going to be playing across 3 tables. There's going to be like a starport for, the enforcers want to ensure none of the ships can get off the system. The plague want to get on the ships and get off. And there's going to be a population center, and then there'll be like a wilderness with like a crashed starship. And it's basically the same objective for every one of them. The enforcers want to secure the area and ensure that there's nothing left alive. And the plague want to get there and ensure they can infect anything that is alive. And hopefully it'll look cool.
Which is the most important thing in the world.
That is.
If you guys enjoyed that, that was just the appetizer. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and on the other side, we're going to come back for the main course, and we're going to dive into all things Epic Warpath. We'll be right back.
This is Akama 13
and Ashwalker,
and you are listening to Countercharge.
Welcome back to Countercharge. And now it's time for you to put your guru hat on. You know, we've dabbled a little bit in it, you know. We've got some topics that we really want you to help us understand, you know, me understand. So as you're explaining, you have to dumb it down. But let's start with, what is your elevator pitch for Epic Warpath?
Mass sci-fi combat in a fun, easy to learn, and quick package.
What do I want to say? Like, itty bitty living space. I don't know what, like from Aladdin. I don't know why I want to say that, but
because it's 10 to 12 millimeter. It's so tiny.
Why should someone get into Warpath, and why should they do it now?
The nice thing about Epic Warpath is that the point of entry is really friendly. So the 2-player starter box, I think, is retailing at $160. That is literally 2 full armies. You could purchase that and have everything you need to play the game. You would not need more. You'll want more, but you'll have 1,500 plus points to play just out of the starter boxes.
You know, I guess what you want more is maybe more to give you flexibility and to have different unit types and stuff, right? But it's enough to get you going and learn the rules.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, from you know, with the 1,500 point tournament for Adepticon, you could literally purchase a starter box of enforcers and build an army and have a competitive tournament list just out of that. I think the individual starters are 90 retail.
And does the individual starters also build 1,500 point armies thereabouts?
The individual, so the enforcer starter, I believe you can get 2,000 points out of.
Because it takes less models and they're more elite. You know, they're more elite, so it takes less models.
Right, they're pricier. Plague's a little different. Plague, you're going to need some extras to get to that point, but you could still probably pull 12 to 1,500 points out of a Plague box. I haven't pointed it out specifically. Well, that's not even true. I did a 1,500 point Plague list for MGT, but I had 3D printed some aberrations and a Plague Lord for that list. But I mean, that's another conversation too, is the 3D printing aspect of Epic right now. So,
well, in terms of the history of the game, were you back in it when they were doing the community surveys to figure out that they would actually make the game, and they basically polled them and said, "Hey, would you do this? Would you?" So to try to like help it was almost like marketing that, you know, it was really a community poll to help them understand what the community wanted from this Epic Warpath.
My interest in the Warpath universe started in the 2nd edition of Firefight. When they started kind of putting Epic out there is when I really sat up and took notice. But that goes back to the whole drop zone thing. I was looking for that game to fill that void, and Epic screamed to me. So when they started, you know, posting it out there, I'm like, I need to follow Mantic. I need to keep my eye on this. I need to know when this goes live.
Well, let's jump in and talk a little about how you can get it, because I know there's a bunch of different ways.
Well, we're all past Kickstarter, so you're not going to go that route. That was obviously the most cost-efficient way at the time to get into it. I know at retail right now, they have Enforcers, Plague, Asterians, and Forge Fathers. You can buy them in individual boxes, plus you can buy their reinforcement packs. You can buy, I believe, one of their Super Heavies. The 2-player starter is Enforcer Plague, which is the same as the individual starter sets, but it also gets you the rulebook, tokens, dice, everything you're going to need to play on top of that. GCPS and Nameless are on pre-order and are releasing in January. And that'll leave Marauders and Veerman, which I believe is a March release.
So they might be too late for someone that wants to play at your tournament in Adepticon, because they're coming out, I mean, unless they come out really early March.
Unless they're 3D printers.
Oh, well, maybe you should talk about that then, because that's another way you can get into the game, right?
Correct. So their My Mini Factory Frontier, I believe, ended at the time we're recording this. I think it ended today. The first one they did was the first 4 factions, which Enforcers, Asterians, Plague, and Forge Fathers. So if you went all in on that Frontier, you were looking at $125, but you would have everything for all 4 of those armies plus the terrain for 3D printing. Which, as someone that backed it, I backed all in. So I have all but 2 of the armies in hard plastic, but those just shipped out from the UK. So I'll have all 8 armies in hard plastic. I did the STL reinforcement pack, and I did hard plastic terrain. But as someone that backed hard plastic, I also went and I picked up all of the factions in resin STL as well because there's never enough enforcer operatives. If you're looking at just buying a singular faction, I want to say the My Mini Factory was $16 for a faction.
What? That's everything?
That was the core box, and then the reinforcements were additional, I believe. I would have to pull the site up to get the numbers, but the campaign's over, so it's going to go back to their retail price now. So I don't know what the retail on those is going to be, but they did announce a week or so ago that the remaining 4 factions will be end of the year or start of next year, which means all 8 factions will be available to 3D print a couple of months at least before Adepticon. So if you have a 3D printer, you have a friend that has a 3D printer, and you really want to play GCPS, then you can either order the plastic for that and it'll ship out to you in January, or you can hop on and get into the frontier, the second frontier, and get the rest of the units. But even beyond that, there's expansion units coming. They suggested around March as well. So the game's got some legs, which I'm happy to see.
That sounds awesome. Like they're hitting it on all fronts. You can go hard plastic, you can go 3D printed, and they're available in both options. I also thought I heard if you back the Kickstarter, I don't think back then they knew they were going to do this My Mini Factory thing. So they gave you guys a good deal because you you already invested in it, and they gave you an extra deal for the My Mini Factory Frontier.
Correct. If you were a Kickstarter backer, you were able to go directly to the vault and purchase the core army boxes for, I want to say it was £5, which is about $7 US. It wasn't anything for what you're getting out of it.
That's less than a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
Right. Crazy.
And I know, I mean, I've talked to Ronnie a couple of times, and he's really talked about embracing the 3D printers because there's a lot of them out there. I think he made a joke at MGT that there are people at his own company that would rather print a model than buy a plastic one.
Yeah, like Clive, for sure. I like to hear him talk about it because I feel like they understand it, which is 3D printing isn't a threat. It's just one more way to distribute models.
You asked earlier about what it is I like about Mantic, and it's such a night and day when you look at it, things going on right now, like the whole GW with Gamic models thing.
Yeah, I listened to your guys' podcast. I had already seen and watched the. It's crazy, dude.
Yeah, it's insanity. Or they just had another case where they shut down 170 Etsy stores, or took a sack of money from them, like Baron of Dice, for selling Blood Angel dice. And come on, man. I can't imagine if someone sold a Enforcer head die that Ronnie would be like, well, time to sue them into oblivion.
Fascinating. We've had the Baron of Dice on the show a couple times, so I'll be curious to hear because they really went out of their way to try to avoid that.
Right. I get protecting your IP. If someone's selling your models or scans of your models, then absolutely that's something that you should go after. But there comes a point, I think, where you're attacking your fans.
It's like that whole thing with MP3s back in the day, right? At some point, Metallica is suing their fans.
There you go. That's exactly what I was thinking. Right? I was about to be like, naps are bad.
There's some similarity here because in that case, the piracy thing wasn't really about getting stuff for free in all cases. Some of it was just, it's the more convenient way to get it.
Yeah.
Right. And this was back in the day before we had streaming services and stuff. And I think it took that to get the recording industry to open up and go, we probably should find a different way to sell this stuff digitally, legally, and make it easier.
Careful, Rob. There's chances you're dating us right here.
Well, yeah, for sure. But, in this case, it's the same sort of thing. If you embrace the technology in a smart way,
absolutely.
When I'm talking about 3D printing, you're just giving your customers another way to interact with your product. And
exactly.
if you make the process simple enough and easy, life works that way. We pick the path of least resistance. So if piracy is super difficult, I want easy. Now I also don't want to be gouged, but I don't want inconvenient methods.
And even beyond that, the materials. I love I love the Asterian Kalishi models that Mantic made, but I hate that old Mantic resin.
It's terrible. It looks beautiful.
Breaks when you breathe on it. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a lot of Mantic resin luggets, and I'm like, every time I play that army, 2 or 3 things pop.
I have 10 Kalishi, and half of them have broken their glaives and been reglued so many times. And I remember when I subscribed to the Vault, I'm like, just give me Kalishi. I just want to print them in ABS like.
Was it this month or October? Was it October?
It was October. We got Kalishi and the Spectra. And I haven't printed any yet because I've been too busy with Epic, but I have them ready to go.
Well, you know what would be interesting? Maybe give us the elevator pitch for each of the factions. I know there's overlap between Dead Zone in this, but what is the elevator pitch for each faction? And if is there any difference between, from a lore perspective? I mean, are they the same army? Forge Fathers is Forge Fathers, whether it's in Dead Zone or Firefight or Epic Warpath.
Okay, so you want the elevator pitch for Epic?
Yeah, I want the elevator pitch for Epic, but I'm just curious, like, is the lore different between the games?
It's the same lore. They released an anthology book with Epic called the Frovox Enigma, which is 5 short stories. One written by the Dead Zone podcast guy who won't have me on, Brian.
Brian Novak wrote a book?
Ryan Novak wrote Mesa. It's the first short story in that.
But is it Dirty Rebels?
It's not. It's Enforcers.
Okay, and now I'm just confused.
It was Enforcers. It was Asterians. It was Forge Fathers. It was everything but Rebels. It was like his soul was cleansed. I don't know what happened.
Someday they're going to release hard plastic Rebels, and people are not going to know what to do.
Brian's going to know what to do. He's gonna put a second mortgage on his house to buy Rebels. He's gonna have the world's largest Rebel army. He won't paint it, but he'll have it.
Obviously, there's no Rebels in Epic, right? Because it wouldn't make any sense.
No, not currently. There's no Rebels in Firefight.
It's like the Junker. What was that? What was that thing from Drop Zone?
The Resistance.
Pickup trucks and stuff.
Yep. Yeah, Technicals and rocket trucks and yeah.
That was amazing.
Jordan was a big Resistance fan. They were Drop Zone orcs, for lack of better terms.
So what is the pitch for each army? Like, maybe just why would you play this faction?
Without going too far into the lore, so humanity is comprised of what's called the Galactic Co-Prosperity Sphere, which is basically it formed out of.
Would that be the GCPS?
That would be the GCPS, which basically is formed out of. It's what you get when Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos take over space. It's just completely unregulated capitalism. So when you build a GCPS force, usually it is either an army that exists for the sole purpose of selling its services to corporations, or it's the actual army of a corporation. They tend to have cheaper troops. I wish I could give you more precise on how they play in Epic, but I just haven't gotten enough games in to see all the factions on the table to give that much detail. But in general, from like the firefight setting, they're really big on gun lines. It's weight of fire and just kind of overwhelming. Then the next main human faction then would be your Enforcers. And the Enforcers are the elites of the Council of Seven, which is the ruling body of the GCPS. And they are genetically augmented super soldiers wearing Forge Father crafted armor, carrying the best weapons and the best equipment that humanity can provide. So they're a highly elite force. You're going to run a smaller army. This is true in Epic as well. It's a smaller force, but they hit really hard. But you suffer from numbers. It's hard to spread out and take the table. You've got to be really focused on what you're doing with them and your objectives. Then you have Forge Fathers, which are space dwarves. Ridiculously hard to kill, ridiculously hard hitting, and slow. Then you have the Asterians, which are your space elves. And I feel bad saying space elves. They're Vulcans. They're whatever you want to call them. They are slender, long-lived, pointy-eared aliens. Asterians are a different breed because they have a huge focus on the balance. So about half of the race thinks that fighting and killing and dying is bad. So in order to engage in combat, they transfer their consciousness into robot drones called marionettes or ciphers that they pilot from either a starship in orbit or a bunker on another planet. And the other half believe that if you're going to go fight somebody, you better do it face to face. And they do it with modern equivalents of archaic weapons, wearing next to no armor, so that they can feel the intensity of the fight as they're out there. Asterians are typically fast. They can hit pretty hard. In firefight, they're known for having a lot of shields, which makes them seem a little tougher than they are, but weight of fire really just tears through shields. So once you knock those shields out, they aren't quite as durable. Then you have the Veermen, which are a rat-like species who are really focused just their own survival. They tend to hide inside of starships or under planet surfaces, feeding off the scraps of society until at some point they have to kind of burst out of their nest and expand or flee. They are very scrappy. They're not a lot of long range hitters, but they have a lot of numbers. You have the Marauders or Space Orcs. A fun thing about the Warpath Orcs is that they visually share some similarity towards like 40k Orcs, but where they're kind of oafish and goofy. Marauders are very good at what they do. They're really good soldiers. They're smart. They're tactical. They take pretty good care of their equipment because most of it they've held on to for generations. They're a pretty well balanced army. They have some really solid armor. They have some decent shooting. They're good brawlers. That's 6, right? In Epic, we get the Nameless Federation, which has been in Dead Zone. But I know about as much about the Nameless as the lore has given us about the Nameless, which isn't very much. I don't really know how that army plays. Josh, that's on Pin and Broken with me, he has really taken a shine to them. So I will plug him for information. And there's one more faction, and I can't remember who it was. Enforcers. See, I did Enforcers, Asterians, Forge Fathers, GCPS, Marauders, Veermen, Nameless, Plague. Jeez. The Plague. The Plague are described as a virus. So somewhere along the way, there's an ancient species that made this artifact that contains this kind of hive mind virus. When it came into contact with humans, it decided it really liked it. The lore initially suggested like the Asterians had to deal with it, and it kind of gave them like a form of rabies that made them a little crazy and mean and fighty. But then when humans encountered it, it led to some of these really violent mutations. So plagues are kind of like a body horror army. They have some tanky brawlers. They are an army you definitely want to close with, especially in Epic. Your Plague Lord is really good at pushing troops up into infantry. You've got Plague Zombies as a really good chaff unit. It's one of the only units in the game that's 9 bases instead of 6. So you can just push them up in hordes and let them get mowed down, but a Plague Lord will actually buff them and make them a little more vicious in melee. If I'm remembering correctly, if they get kills in melee, they can actually respawn bases from infecting the models they took out. Not a lot of shooting, a lot of artillery. If you want to throw in direct fire, Plague is a fun choice for that. And then their Colossus, or their super heavy is called the Plague Colossus. It's a giant like rhino creature. Basically, it's a plague infected dinosaur that can rampage through cities. It's a good time.
You mentioned you have Enforcers. Is that your faction of choice?
That is my primary, yeah.
Your primary, I like that. That means that's a lifestyle game for you. That's my primary. So what's your secondary?
I don't know. I might offend you if I say it. It's Asterians.
Well, yeah, elves are, elf players. What are you gonna do?
Oh, my big 3 are Enforcer, Asterian, and GCPS.
GCPS is cool because they're like that aliens marine type of vibe, right?
Exactly.
They're awesome.
Well, and the mule became available on the vault, so I feel like in firefight it's just almost required for me to run like a 6 or 7 mule list.
That's what I also love is that the 3D printed option gets it more accessible to some people.
Yes.
And so you can really do some bonkers stuff. May not be good, but it would look really cool on the table.
Doesn't have to be good as long as it's fun.
Or maybe good is fun, or fun is good. Yeah.
Rule of cool.
That's right. One of the things I really want to touch on too is the hobby, right? The hobby. So I've done a lot of War Master scale, 12 millimeter, 10 millimeter, ancient or fantasy ranks and flanks. And, I know this is something this is what's kind of drawing me to this game, right? It's that same, I used to play Epic, Warhammer Epic back in
6 millimeter goodness.
What scale is this 6 millimeter as well, or is it 10?
This is somewhere between 10 to 12.
Okay, so it's bigger. So you have less models on a base probably, and they're like
4 dudes per base, usually 6 bases per squad. Stuff like Peacekeepers, you're only going to run 2 figures to base, but 6 bases to the squad.
Well, talk to me a little about the hobby, because like I said, it's a different animal.
What I tend to see is people are intimidated by it because they look at it like you look at a 28 millimeter model, and that is the last way you need to look at it. If anything, it is so much more forgiving, and it depends on the kind of painter you are too. If you are, brush with death competition painter, yeah, Epic is going to strain your eyes. If you are, I want to play games and I want my models to look nice, and the 3-foot rule is my friend, 10 to 12 millimeters, very friendly. You're talking a solid base coat, a good wash, and contrast and speed paints go a long way on these.
The scale is so small that, to your point, if you don't want to put in a lot of effort, you can get by with a really quick, base coat, a quick dry brush, maybe a little wash. And, really basing is important on this more than, whether or not you painted the eyeballs, right? The basing is going to have a big impact.
I will tell you, Pro Acryl Coarse Earth has become my best friend as far as basing goes. Once you get them glued down on the base, you just brush it on. And you don't even have to brush heavy because the models are so small. You almost want to do a light brushing of it because it'll color the base, and then it's going to leave some grit behind. And you can go back and hit it with a dry brush if you really feel froggy. I have yet to do that. Or you can get really crazy and upscale yourself some scatter terrain from like Lazy Forger, or downscale yourself some official Mantic stuff and tack it on your base. But I find with the four mini bases, it's almost too much if you cram anything extra onto the base with them.
Well, let's talk about the game itself. Rather than go into the nitty gritty about how you play the game, give us an overview of how you do play the game, just like a big picture.
At a glance, it seems very token heavy because after you take your initiative, both players assign the actions to their units. So you assign either a charge action, an advance action, or an overwatch action. And then you flip those over so that your opponent can't see them. Then depending on how you play, there's a fog of war rule set for it, which I've not tried, where you don't flip the tokens, but in the standard version, you flip all the tokens so you can see what the action assigned to them is. So if they're charging, they're taking a long move. They don't do anything else. If they're advancing, they take a standard move and they gain what's called a combat token. And if they're overwatching, they go first in the combat phase, which is the next one up. So after you've done all your movement back and forth, you've alternated back and forth and gotten your movement in position, which could trigger assaults, you go into the combat phase. You go into the overwatch phase. So if anyone has an overwatch token, those models will alternate activations, taking their shoot actions. Then you go into the combat phase and you pick your combats. So if you initiated an assault, you can start those assaults. If you just have a combat token on and want to shoot at something, you can do that. It depends on what's available, but you alternate back and forth until you get to the end of the round, pick up all your tokens and do it again.
And on the complexity scale, where would you put this?
When you look at it, the complexity looks high. When you play it, when we sat down and played it at MGT, the first game for any of us, I think by turn 2, we were comfortable. By turn 3, we were only referencing keywords. So I don't feel like it's complex. I feel it's very intuitive, and it's quick to pick up, and it plays surprisingly fast, especially for the amount of models you're pushing around.
Mechanically, is it like any other game out there?
It shares a lot of similarities to Firefight. If you've played Firefight or Dead Zone, the stats will be pretty obvious to you when you see them. It's D8 based system. The command dice are the same as Firefight or Kings of War now. Sorry, I know that's a touchy subject, but no. So mechanically, if you're familiar with the Warpath universe and their mechanics, I think at a glance, you'll have a good idea of what's going on the stat sheets when you grab it. There's some nuances to it. There's no health for any units. If you suffer a wound, you lose a base, and that's the end of it. So there's like no plicking off enforcers. It just comes down to your armor value. In a strange choice, there's some overlapping rules. Of course, this happens between Dead Zone and Firefight too, where it's the same name for the rule, but it performs differently in the game. So for example, like Vicious in Firefight, I'm going to mess it up when I'm telling you it, but I believe Vicious in Firefight lets you reroll ones on damage in melee. Vicious and Epic, if you roll an 8, you get to roll an additional die. It crits or headshots or whatever term you want to use. So I'll be messing that up for the rest of my life, but
yeah, that's always a bad thing when you take the same rule and it's not exactly the same.
Yeah.
Right. Even if it has a different effect, like, in the game. But if mechanically it's different, it looks like a great game, right? I've watched some battle reports. What was Ronnie did a playthrough or a battle report
on tabletop,
and it looked fantastic.
Yeah. Ronnie let him bring way too many super heavies, but I guess if you get it on tabletop, you let those guys have their fun. So.
So you mentioned tournaments. You talked about Adepticon. Is there any other scene yet for tournaments for this game?
Actually, December 6th, there is a guy, I can't remember his last name, Sam, down at Dragon's Lair in Columbus, Ohio. You know Kyle Poole, right?
Hell yeah, I know Kyle Poole.
Why do you make that face?
No, hell yeah, I know Kyle Poole.
He plays down there. He's running a 1,000-point intro epic tournament. And like an idiot, I reached out and said, "Hey man, do you need me to bring you some armies?" And he's like, "God, yes," and sent me like 4 different lists. So I've got more painting to do. But he's got 16 players signed up, and it's 1,000-point list, and you rotate list every turn or every game. So you just randomly get handed a list, so you can try out a new army. It's a learning tournament. Oh yeah, I'm thrilled. I can't wait. Get down there and get 3 games.
Well, are you going to play and win that one too, or what?
Yes. No, I mean I'll probably get throttled because those guys at Dragon's Lair are playing a lot. And Kyle added me to their chat after Adepticon, and those guys are active in a way that makes me jealous.
You didn't really know about the big game, but Kyle ran the big game last year at Adepticon.
Oh, did he? Well, I'll plug him for pointers when I see him.
Be very loud, be very tall. Those are the 2 things that Kyle brings to the table.
Kyle's a subtle human.
Yeah. And don't bring sleeves fellow. And leave your sleeves at home. Those are the 3 things you need to be.
And wear flip-flops.
You may not have heard the story, but I basically said something about him on the podcast, and his wife threw him out because he had some garbage ones that were like embarrassing. Look, you literally look like a Confederate deserter. Okay, and
we're talking the Adepticon ones last year, right?
Yeah.
I experienced those.
Yeah, they're terrible. So he brought him to some event, and I made fun of him. You did mention the rules committee that we've had, and there's been a lot of discussion with Kings of War because they've which they have done before, but they've turned over the rules committee and brought in some new people, and they've additionally transitioned it to away from actually making rules and just doing play testing and list balancing. Because in the past, in 3.5, I think they put a lot on the rules committee, and I think they're better for letting Lucio do the rules. Has there been any talk about maybe a rules committee or a playtest group for Warpath?
There is a rules committee for Epic.
Oh, see, that's why you're on. You are the guru. I didn't know.
I was part of the beta test along with a couple of the other guys that I do pinned with. But we did not get in nearly as many games as we wanted to. It was just we just did not have the time. But it was nice to be able to get a glance at the rules and offer some feedback. But there is a rules committee there, and they've addressed some issues that slipped into print, like Orc HMGs had the AA rule, but they didn't have the range to have it. So they made some tweaks to that until it can get into the builder. But yeah, they're out there, they're active. I think they're just kind of waiting for some events to roll in and some people to start breaking the rules down.
So I guess the reason why they didn't ask you is because you're not English?
Maybe.
I don't know.
And maybe from a King's perspective, you have a different feel on this. Is the competitive scene, I don't even like using the word competitive scene because I don't feel like it's like that competitive because it's still pretty chill. But is the tournament communities UK versus US just kind of different in the way that they play and view the game.
The meta is different for sure. But in Kings of War, historically, our rules committee has been made up of people from the US, the UK, and Australia.
Okay.
For 4th edition, they've added 4 more countries or 5 more countries.
Oh, wow.
So we've got like Germany now, and we've got, other countries. So again, what I was talking about before is they're trying to make the game more accessible. And one of the ways they're doing that is they're trying to make sure they're engaging and hearing from and have playtesters from those countries, right? That maybe weren't getting the voice because look, I understand why you'd have the UK, the US, and Australia. Like those are your 3 big markets,
Right?
And so from a sales perspective, but that being said, you also need to listen to, Central Europe or in Norway or wherever else you want to bring people from. And I assume, they probably, I don't know this for a fact, but my assumption with Warpath, you start with your core markets, and then over time as it grows and spreads, maybe like the plague, you add more countries, right?
Hopefully like the plague.
Yeah. We're at the point where we need to ask you some questions from the community. Now, you're the guru, so some of these are opinions. You know what to say about opinions.
Oh, I look forward to disappointing these people.
Well, we'll start with Dan Zabraski, and I totally slaughtered his name, and I've never said it right before.
All right, Big Z, what you got?
Bases for vehicles, yes or no?
I say yes, but not because I feel bases are great for vehicles, but bases are great for transporting the vehicles, how I transport them.
Gives you something magnetized. The
Correct.
Rules. What does the rule say about bases?
They do not require bases by the rules.
Do you measure from some point on the model, or how does that work?
Front of the model.
So it doesn't matter if there's a base or not.
Right.
Got it.
Most of the vehicles are big enough that if you put a base on them, the front's overhanging it anyways.
Got it. All right. Here's a difficult one. Ian is a crafty Englishman. He always has very difficult questions. I'll read the question. More of an observation, but when I looked at the rules, I couldn't understand why they're using the same movement and shooting ranges in Epic as they do in standard firefight. Infantry should be moving and shooting much shorter distances for me, and that would make transports in long-range guns more meaningful. So I guess there's no question there. It's more of an observation, and I will have you comment on his observation.
I am going to agree with him, but in reverse. The question isn't why are the ranges so long in Epic. The question is why are the ranges so short in Firefight? Because, if you're figuring a model is 6 feet tall, right? So 2 yards, and you've got a sniper who can only fire, 75 yards? That's kind of short.
I think that's a problem with all sci-fi games, or even like World War II, right? Like you're playing a 6x4, a King Tiger. Right. I don't do the math.
The Tiger rolls on the board and it hits everything across it.
Yeah, it may not be accurate, but it can at least shoot that far.
Yeah, and certainly some of it's game balance. No, I don't think the ranges in Epic are a problem. I like them in Epic, and depending on the army you're playing, like armies like Enforcers and GCPS need some range because otherwise they're going to get rolled by armies like Veerman and Plague. They need a little space.
Well, Ian, we appreciate the observation and the point of discussion for our technical guru today.
Yeah, it's a good question.
This next one you kind of already answered, but I'm going to have you answer it again because I'm a dodo bird and I didn't move it to the right spot. Dan McCauley says, Adepticon plans. Favorite game size? I guess it's points. Super heavies, yes or no? I'll say it again, because I totally didn't read it right. So Dan McCauley says, Adepticon plans. Favorite game size? Points. Super heavies, yes or no? And have you experimented with various height buildings?
Adepticon, 1,500 point tournaments played on a 4x4. Super heavies are allowed, just as long as it's a legal list.
That was not a strategically smart choice to bring a super heavy in a 1,500 point list. Or is it army dependent?
I have mixed feelings on the super heavies. I feel they're big point investments. Just speaking from the Enforcer standpoint, at a 1,500 point game, you're dropping almost 30 your list into one super heavy. Now something like the Maven, it's giving you go on your Enforcers for 1 point instead of 2. That's pretty good, but it also just comes with a handful of burst lasers, so it's not taking down anything big. You're gonna have to pack in some like Victors, so you have some decent AP on them. Flip side, like GCPS Battle Mech seems like a ferocious monster with a massive unit strength that's going to be able to stand on an objective and then deliver indirect fire all over the place. Until I get more games in with them and see how killable they are not, I really don't know. Because I look at stuff like Forge Father Magma Destroyer has like armor 10 or 11. I'm sorry, armor 9 or 10. I can't remember. It's some kind of ridiculous. I think it's armor 9. It's higher than you can roll on the die, which means you require AP to damage it. But it's only got resilient 1 if I remember correctly, so you need to get 2 hits on it to take it out. So I don't know. Until I can get some games in with them, I don't know if they're game breaking or if it's the other way around, that there's such a point sink that they actually are crippling to the lists. I want to know. I have a Draken sitting right here on my desk that needs to get paint on. It's the last enforcer unit I need to paint for my army. But I'm looking forward to a tournament. Hopefully we get a big turnout and we get to see some super heavies and some non-super heavy lists and see how everything plays against each other.
Did you cover various height buildings?
I did not cover various height buildings. I have been building mostly 2-level buildings. I have a couple that are taller. When I played at MGT, I had some neat tiles that I was able to put out and just kind of treat that area as the building. And then I was able to put some small 3D printed buildings on it. So it was just kind of like, because infantry can just like pass through it, but it would impede vehicles. So I haven't played too much with height. I don't know that it's as crippling in Epic as it is in Firefight, because it's more of a true line of sight game versus a flat surface line of sight game. No, I haven't played too much with excessive height. I'm looking over behind me here because I've got a table full of terrain, and I'm just looking to see that I built everything at height 1 and 2. So.
I want to dig into that a little bit. So is Epic true line of sight?
Yes.
Okay, so that's interesting because that is not common. Well, Dead Zone has true line of sight.
Dead Zone and Epic have true line of sight. I am preferable to the true line of sight, personally.
I think if you have a game that has very clean rule sets, and you have a game where you make all the models, and you can know that you use the official models, so that there's no like modeling for advantage where I took the dragon and I clipped the wings off and I have him on the ground like he's crawling on the ground. You know what I mean? Like I've seen that before, right? Next question. This is kind of a side question, really talking more about Firefight, but Alfred says, is there any kind of community campaign for Firefight that might be adaptable for Epic Warpath? And I'm going to take it a step further, expert. Is there a way, have you figured out a way yet to tie in Dead Zone, Firefight, and Epic all into one big campaign weekend?
Wouldn't that be awesome? I haven't, but it's a great question, and it's something that I would love to both do and play. I think it's very possible. When I did Drop Zone and Drop Fleet stuff years ago, I did a tournament where they were tied together, and depending on your wins and losses, they would carry over between the games and grant you bonuses. Not quite the same because it was just the 2 games, but I think that there could certainly be a system worked out where you play an Epic game, and depending on what you get on the objective, you can adjust your points for your Firefight army and work it down into the Firefight game. Depending on what you pull objective wise, can adjust your squad going into the Dead Zone game. I really do think there's something there where you could build a campaign system that would be fun to cross your army across all 3 games.
And in terms of Alfred's question about a potential campaign for Firefight that would work in Epic, just in general, are the games similar enough mechanically where it could make sense if you had a campaign for Firefight that you would be able to use it for Epic? Or are the games so drastically different? I mean, they're both alternating activations.
I don't know of any like Firefight campaigns off the top of my head, but I know that there are events in the lore. My original, when Blake asked about the big table event, my original thought was, because I didn't know I had to run them both, but my original thought was one day doing the siege of the containment of Adriana, and then also doing war in the short front. So it'd be GCPS versus Forge Fathers, just to have those themed factions going against each other. But I know there was a Summer of Sci-Fi campaign, and I didn't get enough games played to know the ins and outs of how that campaign played out. I think that's probably a good question for someone more ingrained into that narrative community.
Maybe I'll ask Brian Novak, because I'm sure he's got the answer.
Yeah, ask him why he doesn't talk to me.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, he doesn't like you, I don't think. He didn't say that, but I got that impression.
It's because he's a filthy rebel.
Well, he's a Northerner, right? He's a Michigan. I mean, are you an Ohio State guy?
He is a Michigander.
Are you Ohio State guy or what?
Well, it is my alma mater.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So we have a lot of people outside the United States that are listening to this, and they're like, "What the hell are you talking about?" So Drek lives in Ohio. The major institution of higher learning is called the Ohio State. I love that too. They're so pretentious. The Ohio State University.
The Ohio State University.
Its main rival is the University of Michigan, which is just a couple hours north. Brian, in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Brian actually is funny because he's a Spartan, right? He's a Michigan State.
Isn't he a Spartan?
He's a Michigan, as am I. He's a Michigan State Spartan. But regardless, he still hails, and I use that word intentionally, from the great state of Michigan. So, and to be fair, I'm trying to think, like, maybe what would be a similar, Manchester United against City would be a fair comparison in terms of the hatred they have for one of it. Even though I don't know if those two teams probably got into fistfights too. But so
I worked for the Ohio State University for about a decade of my life, so my passion for the university dwindled because of that experience. But
what's a little interesting fact that you may not know, we started this podcast as Mantic Universe Podcast, and then we converted to Counter Charge in 2015. And our primary benefactor, the guy that keeps the lights on, his name is Andrew Sherman. He is the most fanatical fan of Ohio State. He lives in Ohio, and he's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. I love my university as much as the next person.
Right.
But not like this guy. This guy is a nut job. He's got the whole room. It's all OSU.
And he still can't spell the state alone.
Correct. So we do have one more question, and it's really about hobby. And Scott Silly's asking, hey, I'm going to be jumping in and painting soon. What tricks? We talked about some tricks about using, base coat, a dry brush, and maybe a wash. But, do you have any tricks for painting the 10, 12? What are they? Are they 12 millimeter or 10 millimeter?
Enforcers, I'm pretty sure, are 12 millimeter. I think GCPS are 10. I've seen this question pop up a lot on the base, on the sprue. I'm kind of reached the point where I'm doing neither. I'm doing on popsicle sticks. So I hit my local Dollar Tree, pound store, whatever your cheap store is, and I grabbed a pack of popsicle sticks and a couple of packs of double-sided tape, and I just put a strip down and I stack the models up. Now, depending on your feelings on airbrush, I could be a heathen to you, but I use an airbrush. With my enforcers, I prime them, I base coat them Payne's gray, and then I do a zenithal of white blue over them. And then I put a thin down Payne's gray wash over them, and that is the majority of the work. After that, it's picking out the shoulder pads, putting the chest lines on, detailing the helmet and the gun, and stick them on the base. It's a pretty clean result. If I can plug myself, I've got a paint tutorial up on my YouTube channel that might be helpful. It's Gamer Drek. You can find several Epic Warpath tutorials there for mostly enforcers. I have one for Kalishi, Epic style Kalishi as well. There's even a couple of Kings of Warpaint videos on there. I've spread it around a little bit, but I've been trying to keep stuff coming out pretty regularly with Epic, just to throw something out into the community, because there's not enough.
What an amazing segue. You must be a professional podcaster, because obviously we do need to talk about your podcast, the Pinned and Broken Podcast.
Yes.
Give us the pitch here. What is this podcast doing?
We are, the tagline is, it is a Warpath universe podcast with a focus on Epic Warpath. So it is myself and 4 other guys who were all part of our old Drop Zone group. We used to do a Drop Zone podcast called Command Value 1, which we kind of just abandoned as we got out of that game. And after MGT, when we all finally got, it was the first time we'd all gotten together probably since pandemic days. So it had been a minute, but we all got together, had a really good time. And we're just like, you know what? We've probably got something to say about the games and our experience and our hobby that might be useful to the community. Someone might find some value in it. So, it doesn't cost us anything but time to hang out for a couple of hours and record some thoughts and put it out there.
So it sounds like your pitch is, I'm the Mantic Lore Podcast, but we play games.
No, I'm not. No.
Oh, you
don't
play games.
I don't need Zakayama coming after me, man. I don't. I read the stuff, but I don't regurgitate it as well as he does. That's his shtick. I don't play enough games. I wish I got more game time in, and it's just the result of, I have 4 kids and a full-time job, and most of the guys have a couple of kids in a full-time job, and half of us are in Michigan, half of us are scattered across Ohio, one of us is Indiana. So, it's
all over
an
the
effort to
Midwest.
get everyone together. Yeah.
All over the Midwest. Where did the name Pinned and Broken come from?
We pitched a few ideas. We were trying to come up with it. Pinned and Broken is basically the state of my army in every game. They're both statuses in firefight. Your units can be pinned, and at some point, if you suffer enough losses, the unit will be broken. And we thought it kind of rolled off the tongue better. We considered Inspiring Self, but we thought we would get a whole different collection of listeners with that name. So.
That's right. What's interesting, though, is you haven't learned from our mistake, right? So we took a concept from the game to name our podcast, and now 10 years later, it's been removed from the game.
Oh no!
Yeah, Countercharge is not a rule in 4th edition. So just keep that in mind. Be prepared for a backup option if Pinned and Broke his statuses are no longer in the game in Epic Warpath 2nd edition.
Pinned is a status in Epic, so we've still got that going for us.
What made you feel like you were ready to bring the podcast back with a new name and a new focus?
A lot of it just had to do with how hyped we were feeling about it. When I got into Drop Zone, you would go out and hit YouTube or the podcast scene, and there just wasn't anything there. And when you're trying to get people into a game, that alone is discouraging. It's like, well, I wanted to look at something about the game, but there aren't any paint videos, there aren't any battle reports, there aren't any podcasts, and it's hard for you to keep hype when no one else is hyped with you. So for me, it's just about, I enjoy doing it. As far as hobbies go, it's fun to sit here and paint something and hack it up into a video and throw it out there, and hopefully it inspires somebody and it helps them through a hobby problem they're having, or it just gives them something to play in the background when they're sitting and having their hobby time. They're still engaging with the hobby in some way, and they've got at least someone hanging out with them for a few minutes to say, hey, yeah, other people are doing this.
And where can we get the podcast?
Anywhere you can get podcasts.
Apple, Podbean, Spotify, Amazon Music, YouTube, wherever.
Yeah, Spreaker is my primary host, and I've got it distributed out through there to all the major podcast carriers, so you should be able to find it anywhere.
And let's get a shout out to your co-conspirators for the podcast.
Let's see. There's Donald. He's our former TT Combat employee, studio painter, who makes me feel bad about my paint jobs. Josh, who I call Progenitor Shivak. He used to be Overlord Shivak in the Drop Zone days, but I think he's going Dwarf now, so he might just end up being Huskarl. And then we've got Jordan, also known as Gordo. He's our Orc player. And then there's Kirill. He's a hardcore GCPS, and he is our CAD guy who's designed the Genling that's on the printer right now. And that's everybody. There's a couple of other guys that might pop in, but we haven't had them there yet, so they may want to stay mysteries. I don't know.
If people aren't sold by how awesome Epic Warpath is, give it one more chance, one more time. What do you want to close? What do you want to close with?
If Epic isn't your thing, the Warpath universe is there's a lot going on in it. It's a very rich universe that hasn't gotten as much love as it deserves. And if you're coming from 40K or you're coming from nowhere, it's easy. Any of the 3 games are easy games to pick up and get into. Mechanically, they're all really sound and they're great. The models are pretty good across the board. And find us at a table. We'd love to play you.
Fantastic. Well, I think that's going to do us tonight. And until next time, hold !
Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on Countercharge. Please let us know what you thought of the show by emailing us at counterchargepodcast@gmail.com, on Twitter @countercharge15, or by commenting on the Countercharge Kings of War podcast Facebook group. If you enjoy the show, you can help others find out about it by leaving positive reviews on iTunes. Until next time, keep countercharging. Music is a composition of Kevin MacLeod and is licensed under Creative Commons.
I'd have to move my whole laptop to show you. There may be somewhere in the area of like 6,000 points worth of painted enforcers around me. So
sick. I can't wait to see it. Honestly, I can't wait to see. So it's funny because when I was a kid, I was into like GI Joe, and it's weird because like I would buy GI Joe, but the thing I did with it, I really wasn't playing with them. I was setting up this epic thing.
Your big battles.
Like I had a cousin that had like an apartment around the corner from where we lived in the house, and she had like a spare bedroom. She said, Bobby, you could come over Friday night and you can do whatever the hell you want in this room. So I'd go over there with all my GI Joes, and it'd be like, and we just make a battle scene, and I just can't wait to see your battle scene.
My brother, when we were growing up, my older brother's about 8 years older than me, so old enough to have still been in GI Joe, but also had a little bit of money to buy more GI Joe. And our basement, we had a big old ping pong table down there that was never used for a game of ping pong because he had the Cobra Terradrome and the GI Joe base and all that set up.
You're talking so sexy right now, dude. I can tell you.
I was more of a Transformers guy than a GI Joe guy.
I like Transformers too. But I just finished completing my new Constructicon.
Have you seen these AK Mini Transformers that have been coming out now?
Is that the blocky? What are those things called?
Those are there's a company that does like blocks that are a little goofier and blockier.
Okay.
This
what is that AK? What is that? Is that a knockoff?
They're called AK Minis. It's a company called YOLO Park.
Okay.
And they've done 2 lines now. They're just Generation 1 Transformers in the robot form.
Was that Jazz that you just had in your hand?
That was Jazz.
Yeah, okay. Just making sure. Because it just turns out that Jazz is my favorite Transformer of all time.
Oh,
so I have
that.
him, and I have the Constructicons. That's all I have. So I have one Autobot and one Decepticon. That's it.
Yeah, you had the right Decepticon.
Dude, when they look, okay, so this is a weird side track. Might not make the podcast. I bought some GI Joe action figures, right? And I get it in the mail, and it's supposed to have like 2 characters that cost like $25 a piece. Instead, they send me the double box set for the Constructicons, which is like the 2 main characters, but they sent me 2 those are not. They sent me $180 for the Transformers for what I paid $40 for.
Oh no!
So I was like, I told my wife, I said, look at it this way. I need to spend another $175 to finish this Constructicon because they gave this to me for free. So yeah, if you haven't seen have you seen the new one?
I don't know.
The new Constructicon. They just finished it. Let me grab it.
Oh, are these like? Oh, you took your headset off. This won't make the podcast. Oh yeah.
Let me see. He's like, I guess he's like 24, 28 inches, 20. He's pretty good.
This is the 86 line, right?
Right, it's brand new. And they started maybe earlier this year, and they have 5 packages you buy. One of them's got the double pack, and that's the one I got for free. I was like, well, shit, man, you're giving it away. I mean, essentially, I paid $25 for that box. Anyways, and so I had to buy the rest of them, didn't I?
Well, I'll tell you, these YOLO Park ones are a lot cheaper. They're $10 a box. They're like generic Gunpla, if you will.
That sounds awesome, though.
It's great.
Love Transformers too. So but I don't know if you've seen. I don't know if I've ever showed this.
I'm a big Prowl fan.
Prowl is awesome too. So this is the GI Joe.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So that's like that. And then over there,
you're not messing around.
There's you can maybe see the Dragonfly, his tank, and then there's more over here somewhere.
This definitely isn't making the podcast, is it?
No, but it's there's I don't want to tell you, but it's definitely significant amount of money that I have wasted. And my wife, it's one of those things where I don't tell her, and when I don't tell her, she doesn't know.
She just noticed.
Well, she just goes, "Why the hell is there 2 or 3 boxes every week showing up at the house?" I'm like, "Well, I have to have." It's like there's an old scene from Saturday Night Live where it's you got to have 3, 1 to open, 1 to be in box, and 1 just in case.
Yeah,
right. So
it's logical.
Yeah. Well, I'm a huge. I like nostalgia.
Yeah,
but yeah, my Jazz figures are here too. Jazz is awesome, but Transformers G1. And are you a comic book guy or not really?
Not so much. When I was a kid, yes, but I read the old Marvel books. But I didn't go much past that. I know. I think IDW's got a really hardcore it's like the Energon series, like Robert Kirkman.
Well, yeah. So not IDW, it's whatever. Well, it's Image Comics now, right?
It?
Yeah, it's Walking Dead and Invincible.
Yeah, Kirkman.
Yeah, so Kirkman has it. The Energon. So they do have a hardcore. What's cool is the Energon universe has. It's all in one universe. So Transformers, G.I. Joe, Mask, it's all available. And
that's supposed to be getting an Amazon Prime animated treatment.
Yeah, yes, the comic books are supposed to make they're going to do a show just like Invincible. So it'll be.
I mean, I'll watch it.
Oh, dude, the comic. I'm not. I am a comic person, but I don't seek them out. When they fall in my lap, I do. But like, long story short, they're awesome. Like everything I've seen, I'm like, oh my god. And they're brutal. Like even the G.I. Joe ones, they're like, they put like Cover Girl and the Lady J in a arena and say, one of you have to kill the other one to get out. Like they're stabbing each other.
Oh, well, Cover Girl's not making it out of that.
No, probably not. Even though she's hot, dude. You gotta admit, she's hot.
She was a Cover Girl. Of course
she's a Cover Girl. Well, the funny part about G.I. Joe fans, though, is like, they're like, the Cover Girl from the cartoon, it starts off with blonde hair, but then the actual model that comes with Wolverine's got red hair.
Red hair.
So they came out with the red hair short one first, and it was like, that's not Cover Girl. So now we've had like 3 or 4 different versions. I mean, in a 5-year span, we're at almost 250 figures. Right?
Can Cover Girl not cut and dye her hair?
You know what? You're 100% right. Yeah. I don't. You know what? You know what I hate? Fans are like, they're just garbage. they're like, do you like anything? Sometimes I wonder. Sometimes because I'm like, all right. Well, yeah.
Don't look at Star Wars.
Don't look. Oh, it's funny. I was just having a conversation about that today. About how I give Star Wars the benefit of the doubt, but every once in a while they kick me right in the balls.
I am trying to finish season 2 of Andor.
It's a slow burn.
Yeah, it's not. I'm not loving
good.
it. I mean, it's really well done, but and I think that comes down to like who they're making it for. I guess at that point, like Ahsoka, I absolutely loved Ahsoka. I couldn't wait for every episode.
Anything with Rebel characters, dude. I love Sabine Wren, Ezra, all those. I mean, I'm like, yeah.
I will die on the hill that Star Wars Rebels is the best Star Wars of the last generation.
I'll tell you what. Their contribution to the world is finally pulling some of the extended universe out of obscurity, like Grand Admiral Thrawn, who is 100% best villain. Yeah. He shits on Moff Tarkin.
Yeah.
Like, this guy is so xenophobic, and he's an alien. Like, come on. It doesn't get any more the hypocrisy drips out of his blue skin, right? Like,
oh, he's great.
He's amazing. Well, that
was a good sidetrack.
It was a good. You know what? If you get me going on toys and dude, it's just like my wife though. She's just like, Rob, why is there 2 more boxes here? But the nice thing about being a toy person now is that like we call it like Ross Palooza. You guys have Ross probably up there, or you have Ollie's, like the different bargain shops. Ollie's. Like a lot of the figures show up there. It's like $35 figure for like $13, right? It's like, oh, okay, I can have a 7th Airborne Trooper. Why not? I need that. You
need to do some troop building.
Yeah. Oh, dude, some of these people with these figures, like I have every figure, multiples, but like some of these people have like 20 Crimson Guard. I'm like, okay, dude, that's a different level of fanaticism that I'm not about to start.
There's a few dudes out there who I've seen pop up on my Instagram feed who do like, professional photography with the G.I. Joe Legend figures, and it's really cool stuff.
Well, what I'll do is I'm going to send it to a commercial break, come back, and then we'll get in and talk about Epic. So, all right.
Okay.
Well, that was